Hi, this is James Mitchell, your Intuitive Guidance Counselor, and in this video I'm going to do a look with the Lenormand, and I'm going to be using a question sent in from a viewer who asked me to do a reading for him. His name is Eugene, and so Eugene, if you're listening, I'm going to read your comment, and Eugene said I could use his name, by the way, so I have his permission. And I'm going to read your comment, and then in the next segment we're going to get right to your reading. So here's what Eugene sent to me. I'm just going to read it straight from my phone. So he says, "Hi James, I really enjoy your Lenormand videos." So first, Eugene, let me say thank you for that. And I find them very helpful. I'd like to know if it's possible if you could do a reading for me with the Lenormand. And if you can, here's my situation. So I am self-employed, and I was sending my subscriber list emails every week. But what I experienced was that my open rate and my click rate were very low. So I got discouraged and I stopped. It has been a very long time. Actually, it's been almost a year since I sent them a new email. What would the Lenormand say to me about re-engaging with my list? I'm kind of doubtful, or I'm kind of concerned about people staying around, or I'm concerned about my unsubscribe rate going up very high or highly. So anything that you can get from the cards would be extremely helpful. Again, I enjoy your work with the Lenormand, and thank you so much for taking the time out to look at this situation for me with the cards. Signed, Eugene. So, okay, Eugene, so we know what your situation is. So what I'm going to do, since the topic is really about your email list, I'm going to do what I did in one of my other videos, which was I'm going to charge a card and let that particular card be the focus card. So since we're talking about it right now, there's a card in the deck called the letter, and I'm going to let that represent your email list, because it's going to be a twofold thing. It can represent your email list, and it's also going to represent what possible news or messages you might be encouraged to send them based on what we see in the cards. Okay, so we have the question, we have the card, we're going to do a line of 5, and so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to get to the table. And here we are at the table, getting ready to do Eugene's line of 5 using the Dondorf Lenormand. And Eugene's question concerned his email list. And so I'm going to let the letter, which is a card that represents news or messages, I'm going to let that be the focus card. So what we do in this particular case, we're going to take the deck, and we're going to turn it over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the cards until we come to the letter. Because the letter is going to be our focus card for our line of 5. And so this is an alternative way of getting your 5 cards, if you remember from my previous video. Okay, and there we have the letter. So this card is going to be our focus card. It's going to represent Eugene's email list. Okay, so we're going to put that in the middle. And then what we do for our line of 5 is we're going to take the 2 cards that came after it. And then we're going to go back with the other cards that we had. And we're going to let the 2 cards that came before the letter be the first 2 cards. And so this is our line of 5. I just want to make sure I have it in the shot. Great. All right. So we have, going from left to right, we have the clouds, we have the mice, we have the letter, which is Eugene's email list, we have the dog, and we have the ways. All right, so again, the focus card here is the letter. Besides it representing Eugene's email list, it can also represent news or messages, which is really what is concerning Eugene. He hasn't been sending emails to his email list. So basically the focus is on what message does he send after not sending messages for such a while or such a long period of time. So that's the focus. And with my line of 5, what I do is I look at the cards that are immediately surrounding the letter. So we have the mice on the one side. So the mice represents something that is lost, something that is diminished, and in each case it represents a gradual loss or something being lessened gradually, which is what happened with Eugene's list. He let it gradually. He stopped contacting them, sending them message, but that was over a period of time. It wasn't just like, you know, he just decided one day to stop doing. He stopped and then he just never resumed. So the idea here is with the mice, it could be about worry or stress, and he's already kind of articulated that in his message to me about what to do to resume messaging his email list. So the mice is about stress, worry, but it's also about loss over a period of time. And then on the other side of that, we have the dog. The dog represents friends and companions. It represents loyalty, it represents help, and it represents support. So for Eugene, this is important because since it's coming after the letter, this would be the people who would be loyal to him still, even though he hasn't been contacting them or sending them emails. Who are going to be loyal to him? Who are loyal to the message that he has? You know, who's loyal? They signed up for the email, to be on the email list for a reason. So he wants these types of people. He wants the people who are loyal, who are going to be, you know, who are going to be there no matter what, no matter how often or how little he emails them. He wants these types of people, the people who are going to stick around, the people who are going to support what it is that he's trying to do. And it also could be for him, how can he be supportive to his list? You know, what messages can he give them that's going to be helpful and supportive to them? The other thing about the dog here, and this is for Eugene, what he has to consider doing is how can he regain their trust? He hasn't been emailing them for a long period of time, so on some level he has broken trust in the relationship with his emailer. So how can he regain their trust? That's the dog. So going with the pair, it could represent a loss, going with the mice, of trust, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, who are going to be the people who are going to be gone, the mice, and who are going to be the people who are loyal. It could also be for Eugene the stress of trying to determine the loyalty of his email list. So I'm seeing that with the mice and the dog. The next thing we want to do is we want to look at the cards that are flanking at the ends. So we have the clouds on the one side. The clouds is a card that represents a challenge. It represents confusion. It represents uncertainty. It represents being unsure. It can represent a period of doubt. So it could be Eugene has a great deal of doubt about his email list. It could be too that once he re-engages with them, it could be the confusion, like, who's this guy sending us email after a while? Because chances are they may have forgotten all about Eugene and his business and what it is that he's trying to do, especially if he's the dog. Let's say he's a dog, and this represents being a counselor, a guide, a consultant, or an advisor. If that's been his business, and Eugene didn't say, so I don't want to assume, but this, when we're talking about professions, the dog can represent an advisor, a consultant, a guide, a counselor, somebody who helps and supports other people. It could be like after re-engaging with them, they may not remember who he is, because in business there's a thing called TOMA. It's an acronym for top of mind awareness, and if he's not regularly sending them emails, they may have forgotten about him. And so he may be faced with the challenge of seeing his, unsubscribe rate go up, or, worse yet, being, thought of as spam or something of that nature. So, but the clouds represents on some level uncertainty or confusion. So that could be one or two ways. It could be either confusion about the message he's going to send. He has some doubt about the message he's going to send. Or it could be, the confusion about the email list, going with the letter, the email list, when they receive a message from him, like, who's this guy sending us this email out of the blue? So there's those two things. Then on the other end, we have the Ways. Now, the Ways is one of my favorite cards in the Lenormand because it represents choices, options, alternatives. The core message of the Ways is about choosing the best course. So for Eugene, he has to find a way, because this is about finding a way, pun on the Ways, finding a way to approach his email list. This is about approach. What's the direction? If his business has changed, how is he going to talk about or send a message pertaining to the changes in his business? And that could be how he starts off. It could be one of the things he talks about in his first message, to his email list is about the changes that have happened with him and his business as time has gone on. So that could be a way for him to approach his list. But it could be saying too, like, he's got choices, he's got options, This is not a bad card at all. It's a great card to have. It's just about how is he going to choose to approach his list. But this card says, on some level, he will approach his list. It could also be about departure. Now, if there is a change in direction, then the Ways could suggest for him that he has to be prepared for some people to kind of leave his list. Because this card can represent direction and departure. People going about their business and, what he was providing them in terms of help or support with the dog, they may no longer need. We live in a day and time where people's needs change, and sometimes the things that we send them in email, it serves a time, it serves a purpose, and then they have to move on. So that could be some other aspect of the Ways. So now, keeping with the Clouds and the Ways being a pair, then this could be approaching the confusion, approaching the uncertainty, approaching the doubt. On some level, this pair is saying Eugene has to make a move. He has to do something in order to re-engage with his list. And so how is he going to approach the uncertainty and the confusion that he has about what to do with that? And the Clouds is a card that represents something being fleeting. This is not going to be a long-term state of confusion for Eugene. And it's not going to be a long-term state of confusion for his list. But the confusion may lead to a departure. And so he has to be prepared for that because he's been absent for quite a while. So that's the outer pairs. So then what we do is we take the pips and we look for the hidden dynamics. So again, the focus here being on the email list, we start with the outer pips. So for the King of Clubs on the Cloud, so for the King of Clubs, we have 13. That's a value. And then on the other side, we have, for the Ways, we have the Queen of Diamonds, which is 12. And so that is 25. So the 25th card, very interestingly enough, for Eugene, is the Ring. Ooh, and I just shook the camera. The Ring is all about commitment. It's all about engagement. So again, Eugene is being tasked with the idea of committing to the process of emailing his list. He has to make the commitment. If he wants them to be engaged, he has to be able to commit to engaging with them. And so this ring can represent cycles and something recurring. So on some level, he has to be willing to consider the idea, the approach, the option. He has to be willing to consider the idea of sending something of a recurring basis, because the more often he sends it, the more likely he will reduce the doubt and the uncertainty as to who he is, and it would help him also rebuild the trust that he may have lost by not staying in touch with his email list. So again, this is about commitment, it's about engagement, it's about doing something on a recurring basis. It also could be like, keeping his promise. If he's promising that he's going to send an email once a week, then he needs to keep his promise. So that's the ring. Now, the other thing we do is we take the pips from the inner cards. So we have the 7 with the mice, because that's the 7 of clubs, and the 10 of hearts on the dog, and we have 17. So the 17th card in Lenormand is the Stork. And the Stork is a card that represents change. So on some level, he has to be willing to change what he's been doing all this time. And the change actually is going from not contacting his email list or staying in touch with them or communicating with them to doing it. This represents change and improvement. So if he commits to it, going with the ring, if he commits to it, he could see some improvement in terms of the engagement that he gets. But he has to be willing to make the change. The other thing about the stork is a visual pun for delivery, because the storks have been known to deliver babies. And so this card can be about delivery. So what is the content he's going to deliver? What's the frequency in which he's going to deliver it? And then he has to commit to that. So that's the stork. So I'm seeing here the hidden dynamic with the email list is to commit, to get them to engage, and in order to get them to engage, he has to be engaging himself. And then this card says, what changes would he be willing to make? What kind of improvements would he be willing to make regarding the message? And how often would he be delivering those messages? You know, that may be part of it too. He has to consider doing it on a regular basis. The other thing about the stork, and I'm seeing this with the ring too, the challenge for him again goes back to what I said too. Either people are going to commit and they're going to stay and they're going to form a long-term serious relationship with him, or they're going to migrate and move on, because the stork is about migration. The stork is a bird that migrates and moves, so this card can be about movement. So they're either going to stay out of loyalty, going like again with the dog, or they're going to move on. And he needs to let them move on. And if they no longer need or value what it is that he's trying to put out into the world, then let them move on. But he has to be willing to do that. And the only way he's going to know for sure is if he does the step and sends the first message. So those are the hidden dynamics. And then what we can do is add up all the pips all across. So going with the clouds, we have 13 for the king of clubs. We have a 7. For the 7 of clubs, we have another 7. 7 of spades. We have a 10. 10 of hearts. And then the queen of diamonds is 12. That gives us 49. Oh, this is perfect. Since there are 36 cards in the deck, if we have a number over 36, what we do is we take that number and add it together. And so I'm going to take the 4 and the 9 and add them together, which is 13. And the 13th card in the deck is the child. The child represents something new. So this is a no-brainer for Eugene. He has to send a new message. Now the child can also be about something being simple. So for him, it doesn't have to be something long and drawn out. It could be just a very simple message. You know, it could be something along the lines of like, you know, I haven't been in touch, you know, or we miss you, or, you know, we haven't heard from you, kind of thing, to re-engage with them. But he has to do something new. This is a beginning stage of development. The child always represents a beginner stage. So, but the first thing I saw when I saw the child is about something new. So he has to be willing to send a new message. So that's that. The other thing we can do, because the Lenormand cards have 3 aspects of the card. It has the image itself, it has playing card insert, and then it also has a number. So I'm going to take the numbers at the top of the card and add them all across, and that will give us another way of determining a possible final message. So we have 6, we have 23, we have 27, we have 18, and we have 22. And that brings us 96. So again, over 36, so we add the 9 and the 6 together, and that is 15. And so the 15th card in the deck is the bear. So whenever the bear comes up, this card suggests, first off, that this is about being the authority. So here, Eugene is the authority. When he's sending an email to his list, he has to do something that proves his status as an authority to them. The other thing here is that one of the things he could consider is, you know, what kind of resources can he provide through these email messages? Because one of the things about the bear is about resources. You know, so it's about not only, you know, what kind of resources does he provide, but how resourceful can he be in his messages to his list. The other thing about the bear is that this represents personal power and strength. So this card is asking Eugene to have the strength to send messages to his list, to be strong and have the courage to do it. Yes, and so again, the bear is the other thing about the bear, this just popped into my head. Sometimes the bear, in terms of work, can represent somebody who's a manager. So one of the things that the bear is asking him to do is about managing his list. And the only way you can manage your list is if you make the commitment to stay engaged, knowing who's there and who's not, you know, who's coming in, what are the messages that are attracting people, what are the messages that he's putting out there that maybe having people leave or drop off his list. But this card is about management, so he has to be able to manage his list, and the only way he can do that is to commit to engaging with his list. So these are your cards, Eugene. So again, we have the clouds. The clouds is about your doubt, your uncertainty, your confusion about your list. This card represents a possible loss you may have gradually accumulated over time due to not contacting your list. The letter represents the list itself, but what news or messages are you willing to start providing them now, at this place in time? You know, you can't change the past, but you can also start with a new message. So what is going to be the message? The dog is about understanding that while the mice can represent the people who have gradually fallen off your list due to inactivity, these are the people you want to focus on. The dog are the people who are loyal, who are supportive, who find that your messages have been helpful to them. These are the people you want. The mice are the people you don't want. These people need to go. But the dog people are the people that you want to keep. And then the ways just represents what are the choices, options, alternative. This could be considering, like, you know, at the bottom of each email, it's about giving people the option to how often do they want to receive messages from you. Like, do they want to get every single message? Do they want to change it to like a digest format where they only get one message? It's about what kind of options could you create for the people who are sticking around, for the people who are loyal. And what options are you willing to give yourself? You know, what change in direction are you willing to experience? But it's about change and leave. And you need to be willing to do that. It has nothing to do on your business. It has nothing to do with you in terms of what it is that you're trying to provide, what it is you're trying to put out. It could just be that people are moving in a different direction. Their lives are changing, and what it is that you were providing at the beginning no longer fits their needs, and just honoring that. So these are your cards. This has been a look with the Lenormand. And if you enjoyed this video, like it, share it. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, so this way you can be the first to get an update when I post a new video. If you have a question that you'd like to pose to the cards, you can also send that to me. And your question could be my next video A using the Lenormand. So I'm Jameson Mitchell. Again, this has been a look with the Lenormand, and I look forward to sharing this space here with you in the next video. And until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.